and welcome to our today's compact webinar by the Minivia InTech Academy. My name is Michael Meyer. I'm now working for the organization around 14 years, and currently I'm having the position as training manager at the Academy. But no worries, I'm not your trainer for today. I have the role as a host, and this means I will be available in the background for the communication with you, the communication about questions, concerns, feedback, and I will help you to join this webinar efficiently. Where do you need help? I guess you have recognized your microphones are muted, and this is by purpose, so we can fully concentrate on our speaker, which we will introduce in a few seconds. But in the invitation, as you remember, we asked for your questions and mentioned you will have an opportunity to ask questions to the speaker. This is why, again, I mentioned the chat box in the tool you see on the bottom. Use it at any time to write us your question, and we will make sure to answer them during the event. From the organization, we have planned roughly 30 minutes of presentation and roughly 15 minutes of Q&A, mostly at the end of today's event. So stay tuned, stay with us until the end. Yeah, and I guess you didn't came to listen to me, so we should, as fast as possible, introduce the speaker for today. Michael Kroll, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome to our webinar about installation examples and weighing applications in hazardous area. My name is Michael Kroll, and I'm application and training specialist for industrial scales and developer at Minivia InTech. I've been working for the company for over 24 years now, 21 years as a service technician, and over 3 years approximately is in my current position. But I learned my profession as it was still existing. It is not existing anymore, as a technician or mechanic for weighing instruments 40 years ago in Prague, Czech Republic. At the time it was Czechoslovakia.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good to hear that we have such an expert today as a referent for the topic. I also checked in the guest list. We have many different customers joining us from different countries. They now know you, they know me, but the issue is we don't know our audience. So we have prepared a little poll just to get a very rough idea of your current knowledge, so we can take care of the current knowledge level in this webinar. And let us quickly start the poll for it. And unfortunately, my system tells me that the poll doesn't work. I'm sorry for this, Michael. I probably have again my issue with the firewall who do not allow me to do this. We will need to skip the poll. Sorry for this. So we need to assume, I guess, that we have a lot of beginners, some experts, and let's make the best out of it. Thank you very much from my side. Michael, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Michael, again. Okay, I'm pretty sure it will be a wide range of knowledge on your side. And I'm hope, and I'm also pretty sure that we can offer you as much as possible everything interesting or anything interesting for everybody. So I would say let's start with our presentation. The first slide is actually only overview about the chapters or the parts of the presentation I will show you. I don't want to read it now, but you will get this presentation also for download. You can use it later, and this could be a kind of overview for you. At the beginning of our presentation, I would like to point out some important general considerations regarding explosive atmosphere. Why do we need equipment for hazardous area at all? Even if the first rule is always to try to avoid the explosive atmosphere in the production area completely, it is not always possible. Therefore, we need dedicated regulations to avoid at least to minimize the risk of possible explosion. A general consideration: what is explosive atmosphere and how does it occur? And when can an explosion happen? Three conditions need to be present at the same time. Oxygen, which is the air we are breathing. Fuel, which could be a gas or vapor of a flammable liquid. And heat, hot surface, spark, or even small fire. Or also possible an equipment not suitable for hazardous area. We cannot avoid the first, not always the second, but we have to avoid the third risk. The risk level depends on the kind of the substance, in this way, the liquid, the flammable liquid, its concentration in the atmosphere, and the probability of its occurrence. The dust atmosphere, dust explosive atmosphere, is even more complex. We have the same three conditions: oxygen, heat, and fuel. The fuel in this case would be combustible dust. Further conditions to be considered is dispersion. The dust is distributed in the area, it is present everywhere. Confinement, the space is closed, confined. This could be silo, confined room, wall, building, or kind of container. Explosion risk with combustible dust can be underestimated more easily. The substances are very often harmless, such as grain, flour, starch, and so on. Why do we need explosion protection measures? The possible consequences of an explosion can be very devastating for the facility, and in particular endanger lives and health of the workers in these areas. Combustible dust explosion can be even more dangerous because the shock wave is mostly more stronger, and the destructive impact on the facility and possibly also the surrounding area are heavier than by gas explosion. This is also the reason why we need standardized rules and laws how to organize the explosion protection most effectively. The both EU directives, ATEC 114 and ATEX 153, also known as ATEX 137, define the requirements on the equipment for the hazardous area. This part would be the ATEX 114, and minimum requirements for protection of workers, and in this way the required design and rules for the hazardous area. This would be the ATEX 153. Both directives needs to be implemented in the national laws in each country. The ATEX 114 is aimed at equipment manufacturers such as Minebea Indec, for example, and defines the standards for effective ignition protection. In Germany, this is the regulation to protect the Product Safety Act Explosion Protection Ordinance. You see the name in German in your slide. And in the UK, this is another example, is the BIS Equipment and Protective System intended for use in potentially explosive atmosphere regulation. This is the law in the UK. The ATEX 153 is aimed at the operator, employer, company owner, somebody responsible for the facility itself. In Germany, this is the Industrial Safety Regulation, paragraph 2, number 30 of the Product Safety Act. And in the UK, this example is the DSEAR, the Dangerous Substances and Explosive Atmospheres Regulation 2002. In the USA, there is a similar system implemented. There, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, as part of the Department of Labor, established a nationally recognized testing laboratory, so-called NRTL program. Only equipment and products tested by these testing laboratories are accepted for the hazardous area in the USA and Canada. Menabea Intec uses certificate and approvals, either FM or CSA, issued mostly for both USA and Canada. You will mostly need only one certificate for both countries. There are different local testing and certification procedures around the world. To harmonize these procedures, and a new certification scheme, IECX, has been defined. This certificate facilitates the access to local markets where ATEX or FM and CSA approvals are not directly recognized. In some countries, as Australia and New Zealand, the IECX certificate is fully accepted as approval for hazardous area. IECX certificates are available for all our devices which were launched in the last couple of years. How the practical implementation of these legal requirements looks like. Now we are going to talk about explosion protection measures. As mentioned before, the operator has to define hazardous zones and areas depending on the explosion risk. There are 6 different zones. You see on the left-hand side here. According to ATEX, zone 0, 1, and 2 for explosive gases, and zone 20, 21, and 22 for combustible dusts. Similar system applies for FM and CSA. Approvals, the areas are defined with classes and divisions. The classes define the substance, gas, dust or flames, and the division, the explosion risk. You can see some examples for these zones. The definition of these zones, the zone 0 and 20, the explosive atmosphere is always present, or often for a long time period. Zone 1 and 21, explosive atmosphere is often present under normal production conditions. This is a very important part or consideration. In comparison to zone 2 and 22, the explosive atmosphere is not present under normal production condition and can occur only for a short time. This is some leakage, for example, of a seal, some fault part, not normal production conditions. There are more criteria describing requirements for equipment designed for hazardous area with explosive gases. We were talking about zones, but here's the consideration you can find on the die plate or marking plate. We have categories, which you see here. Category defines the level of protection very high level, high, or normal. And therefore, the zone 0, 1, and 2. The group defines the level of energy necessary to ignite the gas-air mixture, and the temperature class, T1 to T6, defines the ignition temperature of the flammable substance. The group and the temperature class are defined by the substance itself, the liquid in use. And on the right-hand side, you see the EPL, explosion protection level, which refers to the IEC X certificate. The EPL definition is actually the same as the category according ATEX. For combustible dust, it is quite similar. Criteria describing the requirements for equipment designed for hazardous aerobic combustible dusts are again the category. Defines level of protection, again very high, high and normal, and therefore the zone 20, 21, and 22. The groups, again, you see for gases it was 2A, 2B, 2C, we have now 3. At the beginning, here there's a little bit different consideration. The groups defines the characteristic of the substance. It is conductive or non-conductive dusts or flyings. We have a maximum surface temperature, which is defined in degree of Celsius, and ingress protection. The ingress protection can be only IP5 or IP6. Anything below IP4, for example, will be not sufficient for combustible dusts. And again, the EPL protection, explosion protection level refers to the IEC X certificate. Here you can see a practical example of a marking plate of EX equipment or equipment for hazardous area. That's all information required for the specification according ATEX and IEC X. And we see the example for the for some existing device with some definitions. We talk about recently. We have this 2G for the category for zone 1, then group 2C, T4 would be a temperature class, and the GB is the EPL equipment protection level. Similar example of marking plate for equipment according FM approval, example for USA. Here it is a little bit different. You see the class 1, division 1, which would be for gas. The groups. We have group A, B, C, D. Here it is a little bit different. According FM approval, we are defining all groups available, not only the highest one, but all of them. And we have the temperature class, again, T4. Now we know the requirements, and I'm going to show you what Menebea Intec can offer for these hazardous zones and areas.
One short moment, Michael. Can I maybe drop in 1 or 2 questions at this point?
Of course. Mm-hmm.
You have mentioned the different standards, ATEX, mostly used in Europe. You have mentioned FM approval, mostly known in the US. One of the customers is asking basically 2 questions. is it possible to have ATEX approved products and, let's say, import the standard to the US? And the second question was, are there documents available which would make this certification equal to FM approval, or do I need to have each specifically?
The first one with ATEX, it is partially possible for explosive gases. I know in some states or in some areas also ATEX is recognized, but it depends on the company actually and on the customer. And very often there are some international companies, as Bayer, for example, the pharmaceutical company. They are operating worldwide, and they are very often using the same standards everywhere. And some of these companies are also accepting ATEX in the USA, but it has to be clarified locally every time to ask what is required, and if the customer insists on FM or CSA approval, we have to provide it.
That's a good point. So you're saying when they insist on an approval, it's like a yes or no question. You can't say it's very similar, it has this approval. It has to have the one, or it doesn't have the one. There's no step in between.
Yes. Either you have the approval or not. Yeah, it's correct. Yeah. For and most devices, we have both. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One question which is maybe too early. How can I, as a customer, check if the products I have bought are still operating safely? Is there any kind of, let's say, official testing procedure to make sure that the products I have here, even if they are certified and labeled, but can be tested for the safety?
If the device is installed properly and there was nothing tampered or something, nothing changed, no improper repairs or something, then the approval is still valid. Yeah, that's why it is very important. Don't modify anything. Don't use any improper spare parts or something. If the device is working correctly and it was not changed or not modified, then it is approved for decades. Actually, yeah, this approval is not expired.
Yeah. So the best way to make sure that there's no manipulation on the product compared to stock at the manufacturing side and the customer side in between. Okay.
Exactly.
So thank you for those two questions, and I give back to you for the next slides. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And now we are going to continue with our devices, what we can offer you, because up to now it was a lot of theory. But what do we have in our shop? On the first slide, you see for the zones and areas with the highest required level of protection, Menabia Intec can provide components such as load cells and junction boxes. The most models are available with ATEX and or FM approval. That was, I think, also one of the questions I got now, and also ICX certificate. There are some exceptions, but if you need some specific component or some specific product, please ask what we can offer you. The most interesting area are the zone 1 and 21, where many typical applications for hazardous area are installed. Menabia Intec can offer indicators, controllers, and remote terminals, remote displays, complete scales, weighing platforms, accessories such as power supplies for these zones. Again, many models are available with ATEX and FM approval, and also ICX certificate. Some very important devices cannot be installed inside the hazardous area, but can be connected to the intrinsically safe equipment in this hazardous area directly. In this group, you will find, for example, Maxis 5 controller and PR5230 transmitter with special designed options. Or interface converter, power supplies, intrinsically safe power supply for analog load cells, and so on. These devices are called associated apparatus. They also have to have approval, but the device itself has to be installed in the safe area. Sometimes the requirements are less stringent, and the hazardous area is defined as zone 2 or 22. Menevia Intec is able to modify almost all devices with a special option to make them suitable for these zones. If sufficient, this solution is less expensive than intrinsically safe equipment for zone 1 or 21. There's a big difference in the price. And last but not least, Menevia Intec can offer not only weighing equipment or components for weighing equipment, but also, for example, metal detector VISTUS. This device can be installed in ATEX zone, in hazardous area, zone 22. But the inside of the tube, the free fall version of the metal detector, is specified as zone 20, the highest level of protection. Now we will continue with some practical examples as a drawing, but I would like to show you some real devices we have here. I hope you can see it. And there are only a few devices, only some examples. Here on this point, maybe you can also enlarge your screen to see the camera view a little bit better. As a first example, we have two indicators. They are almost identical, but the first one is the standard one, standard COMPIX 2, and the second one is for hazardous area. The first difference, you can see the EX sign, and here on the front edge, you can see the approval, the marking plate with approval, which is obligatory. And also the cables are mostly blue for zone 1. And the main difference is visible if you open the indicator and see the inside. You see white similar housing. I converted it a little bit. This is, of course, fastened original. And you see the electronics, the PCBs are completely different. This is intrinsic safe, and this is standard device. And that's why the devices are also with different prices, and because it is a special development. Here on the video, you see our power supply. There are many very interesting options available. Again, the ignition protection is intrinsic safety in this case. This is our interface converter, kind of a Zener barrier, to be able to connect intrinsic safe device inside the zone, and for example, PC or printer in the safe area. And here we have our Maxis 5 controller. I already mentioned we have some interesting options, WE1 and CX1 options to be able to combine this controller with remote terminal and to be able to operate exactly the same device inside the hazardous area. How can these devices be installed and implemented in the production? In the short time, I will be able to show you only some possible examples and to try to point out some very important benefits. The first one you see, I put in some very often questions or questions that appears very often. The customer is asking, can we provide some solutions? And in this case, it would be, can I connect two platforms to one indicator in the hazardous area direct? And of course, we can say yes. You see this connection. We have our indicator, COMPIX2 indicator inside the area. We can connect one analog platform and one digital weighing platform, our IS platform. Or we can also connect up to two digital weighing platforms at the same time. Or our platform with the approval will be compatible, and also the analog weighing platform with approval for hazardous area are compatible if they are designed for the same zone. And here's example for the power supply I showed you in the picture before. In this case, we have the power supply with additional option, second power module, and we are able to use one housing with two power supplies inside to provide the supply voltage for both devices at the same time. The second question is, how can a printer or PC be connected in the safe area? I mentioned already our interface converter by the I05Z. This interface converter can convert or transmit either RS232 on both sides or RS485 on both sides, or make a real conversion for RS422 to RS232. This version is very often used for longer distances. You know, RS232 will be only up to approximately 20 meters. And using RS422, we can use this connection up to 330 meters distance. The next benefit, we have COM1 serial interface as a standard. And maybe I can show you shortly. This will be, this is the serial interface available as a standard feature. And you can see three connections. They are all versions, RS232, RS422, and RS485. And this could be modified all the time directly by the customer or by some technician. Only reconnect this connecting cable and you have another version. Some customer can ask, I need a field bus connection for my application. Is it possible? Of course, yes. There are different versions. This is the first one, actually more flexible one. In this case, we are using the serial interface on the indicator and connect our interface converter RS485 to RS485 connection. In this case, we can go up to 1,000 meter distance. And using the RS485 to connect the transmitter, the PR5220. And there are different options available as Profibus, Profinet, DeviceNet, and Ethernet IP. And in this way, we can realize all usual field buses which are available. But somebody can ask, okay, I would like to have the Profibus connection directly integrated, not to using transmitter. Is it possible? Yes. we can do it as well. I know this picture is a little bit crowded. I have to apologize, but I wanted to show you as much options and possibility as possible. And you see, we can connect even in this way, or in this case, still two weighing platforms, the same one analog and one digital weighing platform. And we are using additional option, so-called Unicom interface. One part of the Profibus interface is integrated in the integrator, and the second part is in the power supply. And from the power supply, we can connect this cable, violet cable. You can connect the PLC directly without Zener barrier, because we are using another ignition protection. It is not intrinsic safety, but I think increased safety. And we can connect the PLC, for example, directly. You see there are two cables actually connected, and another one is ending here in the field. We can connect another device in the chain, or if it is the last device in the chain, or only the one, then there will be terminating resistor. I would like to have the full functionality of Maxis 5 in the hazardous area. Is it possible? Of course, yes, as I mentioned before. This is our Maxis 5 controller. And you see the options, CX1 and WE1. There are two intrinsic safe options. The one is for the connection of the remote terminal, and the WE1 is the intrinsic safe connection for analog weighing platform. The device in the hazardous area looks actually identical, but it is only remote terminal. But for the operation, it is there is no difference. You have exactly the same keypad, the same functionality, the same display, and the device is actually mirroring the controller in the safe area. And you have the full functionality of Maxis 5 inside the hazardous area. All options and interfaces of the Maxis 5 can be used in the safe area without restrictions. What gas can be connected to the remote terminal in the hazardous area directly? And you see it is again a little bit crowded, but there are all options available. We can do up to 6 load cells directly without junction box, keypad, PC keyboard, then scanner for hazardous area. We have 4 digital inputs and 4 digital outputs directly in the hazardous area. Everything available. And in the controller outside, we can use all applications.
Michael, short break. We have 7 minutes left for our usual plan. Do we think we have still a bit time left for some questions? There are just still a few.
Yes, definitely. I have only 3 slides left.
Okay, perfect. Let's take those 3 slides, and then let's come back for the Q&A session.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
By the way, the camera is pointed on the products. We can't see you.
Yeah, I can turn it back.
That would be great.
I have estimated it is more interesting than my picture, but okay.
No, thank you, Michael.
You are welcome. And finally, I would like to mention some very important rules. The final decision about zones and further criteria we mentioned before is always at the customer. Only the customer, operator, company owner knows his production and can make proper assessment about possible risk. Our recommendation, please never guess or suggest possible zone to the customer according to your estimation. We can provide all documentation to the customer necessary for his decision and also support him with all information. But we never make some suggestion in this regard. We already mentioned intrinsic safety, and the intrinsic safety is the most common ignition protection for the electronic equipment used in the hazardous area, especially zone 1 and 21. Almost all our devices you saw before are intrinsic safe. The compatibility of the connections, verification of intrinsic safety has to be calculated. For Menebea Intec equipment, you will find all calculations or verifications accomplished already in the manual. Combining Menebea Intec equipment with devices from another producer, our expert can support you with the required verification of the suitability. If you need some calculation which is not available, then we can support you, and mostly it is also done for free. And the last very important point, the Zener barrier or interface converter has to be always used if connecting intrinsic safe device in the hazardous area, standard device as PC, for example, in the safe area. Never connect these two groups together without this protection, even for testing purpose, in some workshop or something, or for repairs purposes. Using any not specified way, such as modified cable, for example, in the workshop, will lead to expiration of the approval. The equipment cannot be installed in hazardous area anymore. There were some older recommendations in the past, but please don't do it. Always use a Zener barrier or interface converter, even for in your workshop. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm very happy you are attending our webinar, and I would be happy to answer your question either directly now following the webinar or later via email, of course.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your presentation too.
You're welcome.
We are running out of time. There's technically only 4 minutes left. So first statement, very important. If you have asked questions which we will not be able to answer in time, don't worry. I will contact you via email and make sure you receive your answer to the question. But let's make it quick. Let's go to the first question, and I guess it's an easy one. Michael, will you share today's presentation with the audience?
Yes, of course. Yeah, you will get a full presentation available. Yeah.
So no problems on this. I will make sure to transfer the email via email the presentation after this event. During our first Q&A, we created a sort of discussion in the chat. The first question is, let's say, for the installation of an ATEX product, do the technician who's installing the product, do you need any kind of training or certification that he's allowed to do the installation at customer site?
It is not obligatory, but we will always recommend it because it is very important to use for this kind of work, to know the product, and we always recommend proper training to be able to manage the installation, also some repairs later. Yeah. But it is not obligatory.
So we know there is no obligation for the installation, but what about people repairing the product? So opening the sealing, maybe replacing parts and putting them back together. Do they need to be qualified, certified? What do they need to take care of?
Again, I will recommend it, or there are of course another people to decide this, but I would always recommend it. This qualification and training, but again, it is not obligatory. But everybody who is doing something, all the devices will be responsible later. There are, of course,
This is an important point. I know it also from the academy. Many people come to our training and expect to be certified to repair in the name of Menebea Intec, but it's an important point that basically the service brought to the customer then is taken in the responsibility of the company doing it, and we provide the qualification. Enough about training and this. But one question is, the Y2 option is suitable for zone 2. You mentioned in your presentation. People were thinking it's only available for 22. Can you give us a hint on
it? Depending on there is mostly you have both. If you have this option Y2, then it will be for both for gases and dust. There are some exceptions where the option is only for gases because the IP protection is not given. There are some, for example, complete scale Signum. They have only IP 43, and this is not sufficient for combustible dusts. And this device with I2 option will have only zone 2, but not zone 22. The same will be, for example, a remote terminal. We have also the remote terminal with this, or Maxis 5 with the Y2 option, the Maxis 5 control, and depending on the housing. If you have the complete housing and IP65 protection, ingress protection, this will be for zone 2 and 22. And without the housing on the rear, you have only IP20, I think, and in this case, it will be only zone 2.
Understood. Thank you very much, Michael. We are out of time, but let's still take the last 2-3 questions and then try to be in time as much as possible. Do we offer any kind of battery option which is then compatible to the ATEX zones? For the indicators?
Yes, we have done. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we have done. I don't have any picture, unfortunately, here, and also don't bring it here. But we have one option, one rechargeable battery, which can be used in zone 0, I think, 0, 1, and 21, and directly in the zone. But the charging procedure has to be done in the safe area, of course. But this battery, rechargeable battery, is available.
I will be happy to provide a data sheet to our customers after this event. What about truck scale? You haven't mentioned any truck scale applications in your presentation. Are they?
Truck scale, yeah. Excuse me. Truck scale will be also, of course, available. Depend on what you need. In this case, there will be some components, and the first will be, of course, the load cells which are implemented. If we are using analog load cells, we have even up to zone 0 and 20, but mostly zone 1 and 21 will be sufficient. Then junction boxes are also available, and the controller depends on. We can, if you would like to connect the indicator CompX2, could be also installed inside the zone 1 and 21, or use the controller, the Maxis 5 controller, and the combination with the remote terminal and Maxis 5 controller in the safe area. In this case, you can also use our very good truck application, for example, for this.
Thank you very much, Michael. As promised, last question, but a technical question. The X barrier PR162660 is only approved for load cells installed in zone 1. This is the assumption made by the customer. I didn't cross-check, to be honest. If the load cells are on zone 21, so in dust, is it not possible to use this barrier further? Do we need to use another one?
Yeah, unfortunately, you are correct. This is really only for zone 1. I think it is a little bit historical reason, because the device was developed some times ago, and the combustible dust zones came a little bit later, and we have really only the approval for zone 1, but not zone 21. If you need something for zone 21, we will need to look for another solution.
Understood. Michael, we are a bit late, so therefore we quit the question and answer session. As promised, we will answer all the questions sent in via email after this session. I thank you for your participation, Michael. Thank you for joining us today. And before we finish, if you like this webinar, just check out on our homepage. You will find the service section, under the service section, webinars, and then you will find further webinars from the Minebea Intech Academy, not only the ones in the future, but also the recordings from the past. So make sure to join us again, maybe for our next session. So thank you for joining. See you soon, and goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, goodbye for me, and thank you very much for your attention again.
Bye.